video is sponsored by Squarespace. Hello, I'm declining internet personality Adam Ragusia. Welcome to my basement closet. You know, as a 42-year-old white suburbanite who's also very, very basic, I am, of course, very much into music that consists of sort of loud, distorted guitars, right? I likes what I likes, and I don't apologize for it. Interested in lots of other music, too, but I like sort of, big guitar rock, right? I mean, honestly, who doesn't like this one? Come on. But also, like a lot of other 42-year-old men, I'm quite convinced that rock just isn't as good as it used to be. It's certainly not as popular as it used to be, and there are a lot of reasons for that. One that is often cited is just demographic change. People of my general demographic description are not nearly as culturally dominant as we used to be. Thank God. I'm sick of Me Too. But I also tend to take a somewhat Darwinian view that the music that tends to be most popular at any given time is the music that just happens to work the best in the listening context that is dominant at that time. And today's listening context is this stuff, phones and computers and stuff. And I am not a Luddite. I love these devices too. I mean, I make my living on them. The living that allowed me to buy a house with a basement into which I could put a drum set and finally learn how to play the drums. But my totally unprovable and therefore unchallengeable opinion is that one of the reasons why rock declined is that it doesn't sound good on digital devices coming out of tiny little speakers, whereas a lot of other kinds of music do tend to come out of little speakers sounding much better. Another reason why it has declined is that it records particularly badly onto digital devices for reasons that are not entirely obvious, and I'm going to talk about that and show you some examples. I'm not going to argue that the digital recording sounds sterile and cold, whereas the analog is so much better. No, it's not that. The real problem, I think, is that when you record music on computers, it's really, really easy to add layers, layer, big, make things huge, and then to process them to make them sound even more huger. And I know it's counterintuitive, but I really do think that big, loud guitar rock tends to sound bigger when its growth is checked by technology, among other forces. So here are two of my favorite rock records of all time. This is the first Van Halen album. This is R.E.M's Monster. I didn't really like R.E.M's Monster when it came out when I was a teenager. I didn't like Monster because I remember thinking it sounded so small. It sounded so timid. I mean, I was listening at the time to what was on the radio, which was like Metallica's Black Album and Nirvana's Nevermind, right? Gigantic big budget productions where they layered up the guitars a whole lot and made things sound really, really huge. Monster comes along. Peter Buck basically just plays one guitar most of the record. I mean, there's lots of guitar layering in terms of little decorative parts, leads and stuff like that, but generally there's one rhythm guitar playing the chords of the song at any given moment on most of these songs. Listen to What's the Frequency, Kenneth, the first song. I'm not going to play it because I don't want my money stolen. But yeah, you put on the record and it opens with these big distorted guitar chords, and that's just one guitar. Normally when you're playing chordy stuff on a guitar record, you double the guitar. You play the same rhythm part twice. Let me show you what that sounds like. So this is a song I wrote that I've been recording down here. It's called Soon You, and I recorded it with just one rhythm guitar. So here we go. One rhythm guitar, bass and drums. That's all it is. One guitar playing those chords. Now I'm going to bring in an extra guitar. Very attractive. I like how much fuller that sounds, but it comes at a cost. First of all, doubling the rhythm guitar parts takes up more space and therefore takes away space from the other elements of the texture. And when your singer is freaking Michael Stipe and your bass player is freaking Mike Mills, oh my God, such aces, those guys. Peter Buck knows to step back and leave those other guys more room to be heard. So here, I'm going to turn on the vocals on my song and I'm going to play it for you the way I plan to release it with just one guitar.
Feeling, soon I won't know what you're feeling, soon you won't know what you're feeling, soon you won't know what you're feeling.
All right, now I'm going to play those couple bars for you again, but with the extra rhythm guitar added in that I do not plan to use because I think it detracts from the lyrics and stuff.
Feeling, soon I won't know what you're feeling, soon you won't know what you're feeling, soon you won't know what you're feeling.
Now you may think to yourself, man, I can handle that amount of thickness in a texture. I can still hear the singing such as it is from this guy, right? But, I think the more you add, the more you take away. It is often the case like that when we're cooking at home, right? We're like, it can't hurt to just throw a little bit of this in, but it all adds up. A little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of this. It's kind of like doing a haircut where you take away from here, and you don't plan to make any drastic changes, but before you know it, if you're not careful, you've like taken the whole thing off and somebody's got like a high and tight when they really just asked for a trim. The far worse thing that I think overly thick guitar textures do is that they distract from the bass, and often render the bass completely irrelevant, which is a shame to me because the bass is my favorite instrument. So one of the things that I love about this album, Van Halen 1, is that there's usually only one rhythm guitar part at a time, and therefore there's more space to hear Michael Anthony, the terribly underrated bass player of Van Halen. The other thing is that Eddie is usually kind of playing sort of lead, soloistic guitar textures, even under the singing, which is actually less thick and leaves even more room for the bass to be heard. When you're just strumming chords on the guitar, sounds better when it's plugged in. There's almost no need for a bass player, right? Because the bass note is right there in the guitar. All of the notes of the chord are present. But when you're playing something more kind of soloistic, like I've got a song that goes like this, that's the verse riff. Here, listen to it in the song.
I know that you feel me, 'cause I know you've got empathy.
Right, instead of playing full chords with lots of notes, I'm playing just one or two notes at a time, and that leaves room for the bass, and makes me write more interesting bass parts to kind of fill up that space. But I think there's a reason why you don't hear many records like that anymore, and that's because we're listening so much out of phone speakers. Phone speakers and computer speakers and such, they're small. Small speakers have a great difficulty, for physics reasons, of reproducing low frequencies and then making them travel across long distances. If you hold your phone up to your ear and listen through the teeny little speaker, you're going to hear the bass. You take it away, you're not going to hear the bass. The problem with that is that if you make music where the bass is essential to the music and you lose the bass because someone is listening on a tiny little speaker, then the song isn't going to make any sense, right? So here's my song here. It's called Free to Be. You can hear a little bit of it, full texture, bass and everything.
You don't have to do what you don't want to.
Let me play it back for you now with the bass removed.
You don't have to do what you don't want to.
Yikes, right? It's a real problem because there's crucial harmonic information in the bass part. I'm not playing full chords on the guitar. You need the bass note to hear what the root note of the chord is for the music to make any sense. And if you lose that coming out of a tiny speaker, well then you don't know why the music sounds like crap. You just know that it sounds like crap, and so you hit next onto the other thing that's on Spotify or whatever. Now the other thing that I really hate about people layering up tons and tons of guitar parts in the computer, where it's really easy to layer things up, the other thing I hate about that is that it causes you to sort of simplify your playing so that it can be precisely doubled. That was one of the main reasons why Eddie reportedly hated doubling his guitar parts and refused to do it when he went into the studio as a young buck to record Van Halen 1. He was like, I want to do little filigrees and little spontaneous things when I'm playing. I don't want to have to worry about standardizing the part so that when I go to double it, I can double it precisely. And I'm not Eddie Van Halen, obviously, but I tried to kind of take some inspiration from that. And let me play you the coda section of this song of mine, Free to Be. I'm going to take the vocals out so that you can hear it. And here I am doing this kind of soloistic guitar part that's behind the vocals. And since I knew I wasn't going to have to double it, I was just doing a one guitar song, I got a little spontaneous and I played things in ways that I really could not reproduce if I tried. And those are kind of my favorite parts of the song. Yeah, that little bit there, I kind of lost control of it there in a way that sounds good to me and I like. It's a happy accident, and I couldn't reproduce it if I tried to. Okay, so yes, internet commenters, I know that we had multi-track recording before computers. People were layering up a million guitar parts long before computers, but computers make it a whole lot easier to layer things up. Another thing that computers make a whole lot easier is compressing your music. That is to say, taking the dynamic range of the music, the softs and the louds, and then evening them out, basically making everything maximally loud so that the song will sound really, really loud relative to the other songs in the listener's playlist, which is something that, musicians really, really want, and consumers want it too, because you don't want to be like fiddling around with your volume knob in between every song on a playlist to compensate for one song being louder than another. I mean, there's good reasons to compress music, and compression also has some nice kind of textural effects. It can make things sound kind of meaty, but if you do it too much, it really takes away a lot of what makes, a great guitar player sound special. When you compress at Eddie Van Halen, it doesn't sound good. I'm not going to play that for you because I don't want to have my money stolen, but I'll play a much worse guitar player, me. I'm going to compress the hell out of myself and you'll see the difference. All right, here, I'm going to play you my coda again. Here it is with the sort of moderate amount of compression that I actually plan to use on the song when I release it. Here it is with no compression at all. No compression at all. Now I'm going to turn up the compression. This is a little extreme, but closer to like what they do to records nowadays. It's like music that's been extruded through a toothpaste tube or something. All of the detail has been kind of sandblasted off because the louds and the softs are all equally soft and loud. I mean, if you listen to the albums that Eddie Van Halen recorded toward the end of his life when he was doing it onto computers with tons and tons of compression, I'm sorry, it does not sound as good. He doesn't really sound that much like Eddie Van Halen. He sounds like Eddie Van Halen when you can actually hear the full texture of his playing, the softs and the louds, as you do in these early records. And I'm not talking about sections of music being louder or softer, like here's the big loud chorus and then here's the quiet little verse or something like that. I'm talking about something that unfolds on the millisecond level. Let me show you. So these are individual drum hits that you're looking at here, and see those like spikes in volume right there? Those are called transients. Like that's the moment where the stick hits the drum. And when you kind of even everything out, you lose the peaks to bring up the valleys to make everything louder, and you lose the texture of that one moment. And what does that actually sound like? Well, here's the drum part that I recorded with very little compression on it. And here I'm going to turn on a lot of compression. You just lose detail. And we simply live in times where the sort of technological and market incentive is there to compress the hell out of your music. Some kinds of music sound really good through the compression, like electro pop, dancey pop sounds great through tons of compression. But my totally unprovable and therefore unchallengeable opinion is that like rock music just doesn't sound as good through that kind of compression, and therefore that's one reason why people are a little bit less interested in it nowadays. So this is why when I went to make my new album, Dad Rock, linked in the description, I took some inspiration from these two albums specifically, Monster and Van Halen 1. I wanted to try to do sort of my version of scrambling these two records together. A kind of a heavy-ish guitar rock album, a little artier than Van Halen, more on the REM side in terms of how I write words and sing them, but I wanted to do sort of a guitar album like these and just keep it to one single track of rhythm guitar. In fact, there's actually only ever one guitar at a time in any of my new songs. There's no guitar overdubs whatsoever, one guitar at a time album. And I thought that I could get some even more old school vibes by bringing out a piece of old school technology. This is my old 4-track tape recorder that my dad bought me when I was a teenager. Records onto little cassettes, but you haven't seen one of these in a while. 4-track means you've got 4 layers to record on. 1, 2, 3, 4. Only 4 layers of music at a time. So my new song, Glue, I tried to demo it on my 4-track recorder. You can hear a little bit of it right now. Love that sound. Yeah, so it obviously needed more work, but I thought I could do the work here on the tape deck. The problem was that once I got the bass and the drums and the guitar recorded, it was just a single mic drum recording. I was trying to go real simple. Once I got all the basic tracks recorded, I went to go sing the song, and track 1, which I had left open, didn't work anymore. I mean, why would this thing work in its entirety when it's been in storage for 20 plus years? We have to admit that we live in the 21st century and move on, but these things were really awesome in their own way back in the day. But I was worried that when I went to go re-record that song on the computer, I would be tempted to do what everyone does nowadays, which is use the unlimited space of the computer, the unlimited tracks, to just layer the whole thing up like a cake. And that I would also, fix things too much in the computer, overly inspect everything, record things teeny little bit by teeny little bit. That's something people do a lot these days, recording just a few notes or a couple of bars at a time to make everything perfect and then move on. And not only would that create a record that lacked life in my estimation, I tend to really just value the slight human inaccuracies in most performances of older rock records. And the other thing I was worried about was that if I worked that way, I would probably spend months and months and months down here in this tiny little room in my basement, ignoring my family and ignoring my real job to pursue my stupid pipe dream of making a record. And I just know that I'm the kind of fastidious person that if I can tinker with something, I will, and computers enable you to do endless tinkering. You can try something, undo it, try it a different way, undo it. You don't have to commit to decisions when you're recording to digital, and that really can be a curse, especially for someone with a personality like mine. But then it occurred to me, the only way that anyone is going to listen to these songs that I've been writing in this emotionally tumultuous last year of my life that I really felt I needed to express something about, the only way that people are actually going to hear this is if I put it on YouTube, because YouTube is where my audience is, which means I'm going to need to make videos for these songs. And I thought, what am I going to do to make a music video? Am I going to lip sync and dance around like Duran Duran? That's a dated reference, but you got it, right? So I figured I know what I'll do instead. I'll set up the camera, I will record myself recording the tracks, and because I don't want to sift through hours and hours of footage, I'm going to have to commit to only doing a couple of takes, a few takes of each track, each instrumental performance and singing performance on the album. That way I've only got a couple of pieces of video for each take to go through. And that will incentivize me to just kind of do human takes with mistakes, commit to them, and move on. It would also incentivize me to not layer everything up to high heaven. Almost all of these songs are just bass, drums, guitar, vocal, couple little added bits here and there on a couple of songs, and that is it. And therefore it made producing the videos very, very simple for me to do. So when you watch my music videos, you're actually seeing me actually recording the specific take that you are hearing in the music. If I really, really screwed up a thing here or there, I would go back and punch it in, as they say, just re-record those couple of bars. But otherwise, what you see is actually what you get. Now, am I nervous about the fact that I'm putting something so old-fashionedly human and imperfect out into the world, and something where I didn't layer it up to hide all of my mistakes? Yeah, I'm pretty nervous about it. Then there's the delicate issue of singing, which is definitely my weakest point in my forest of weak points. I mean, my drumming isn't great. I just started playing the drums about a year ago, but boy, I love it so much. I'm so enthusiastic for it that I think that probably, I hope that my enthusiasm makes up for my lack of skill, and I can hear myself getting better through the songs that I recorded. Like Glue was the first song I recorded. Drumming is not so great. The later songs, the drumming is a little bit better. And I learned from recording drums that one of the things that I really like about other people's drum performances is when they're not perfect. When they're too perfect, they just sound like a machine. And, machine perfection is a dime a dozen nowadays with computers, so what's the point? Anyway, singing. So the thing about my voice is that I can sing with a pretty loud, supported voice, but it just sounds like the guy from Creed, yeah! I don't know, it just comes out that way. I think that, my voice that's a little bit more throaty, a little more breathy, tends to sound a little bit better, at least for the purposes of the songs that I write, but it just kind of lacks power and depth and doesn't carry over textures very well. And so I went to my buddy Elizabeth Zaroff of The Charismatic Voice, fantastic vocal channel here on YouTube. She reacts to vocal performances that you might not expect someone like her to react to, and she always has really, really fascinating and generally positive and kind comments to make. And so I went to Elizabeth and I said, help me get a little bit more power out of this instrument.
We're going to do a little strawphonation together. So this, and I can demonstrate, there's all kinds of straws people can use. Since you have the one in water, I'm going to use this contraption.
Okay.
This is a Dr. Box.
Oh, is that a purpose-built thing? That's like a...
Yes.
Sorry, I thought that was a bong.
Amazing. No, it is actually a device. It's called a Dr. Vox. We're going to start at really, really low. We're going to slide all the way up super high and then back down. Give that a try.
Oh, I'm going in intervals on the way down. That's weird.
This is good. That's going to be such a good exercise for you. The straw it's an SOVT, semi-occluded vocal tract exercise. So that means that we're putting something in the way of the air coming out. The air is reflecting. It essentially creates this like little pillow of air that it's like a little cushion to the larynx. And this increases the effect of the Bernoulli effect as the air is coming through the vocal folds. I know this is crazy. It's like super heavy, steeped in physics.
Give me Bernoulli effect. Keep going. My people are smart.
Bernoulli effect, it's the same thing that it has to do with like fluid dynamics. It's the same thing that makes airplanes fly. If you blow between a piece of air, it makes, or if you blow between two pieces of paper, the papers go like this. Right? Have you seen this? And it's because of how the pressure is flowing through or pulling even on one side and actually pulls the paper pieces together. Same thing happens with your voice, where it can help pull the vocal folds together. It helps to create more efficient closure.
Thank you, Elizabeth. That exercise has been doing well for me, and I think I got a little bit more oomph in some of my later performances, like this one.
Free to be not so mean.
Anyway, Dad Rock, my new album. I guess you could call it an EP. It's only 7 songs, but I generally think that most albums are too long and should be closer to 7 songs than they are to the standard length of like 10 to 12. And indeed, in the digital era, albums have been getting shorter, which I think is a good thing because people no longer have to like feel an obligation to fill up a whole piece of vinyl so that, you know, the customer doesn't feel like they get ripped off because they paid so much money for it. You don't pay anything for music now, and so you can't feel ripped off. Isn't that great? Dad Rock, as of this recording, is just on my SoundCloud. It will be premiering in mid-October on Spotify and all the streaming services, and I do plan to release the music videos one a week going forward. So the first one will post on Monday, the Monday after this video goes up, and I think I'll do one a week every Monday until I've exhausted them. I have no illusions about my abilities as a performer. They're generally quite weak, but as a songwriter, I think I have a little bit of game. I went to school for music composition at some elite conservatories and flunked out. I don't think I'm going to become a big rock star, in part because such people don't really exist anymore, but maybe a more realistic goal I have here is to hopefully inspire some perhaps better musicians out there to try making some albums a little bit more in the vein of Monster and Van Halen 1. Simpler recordings, fewer layers, less compression, less perfection. And if you're a really awesome player like Eddie, I think you might really be able to allow your playing to shine a little bit more in that context. And I know people are doing that already, and there's going to be a bunch of examples that are given in the comments below, and hey, that's awesome. I promise to check some of them out. Now, I probably should put together a website where my new album can live. The album and all of the associated media, the video files, and the links to all the streaming services, they can all be in one place for people to go and find, and I can do that quite easily with Squarespace. Let's check out a suitable template. Let's see, what am I doing? Oh, music type project. Sure, I'll say that. I want to publish media. Yeah, this one might do. Give it a title, Dad Rock. I just hit edit, and then I start replacing the stock elements with my own elements. So I can replace this picture first of all. New album. Everything I'm doing right now, I'm doing for free. You can putz around on a template for free anytime. And now what I can do is say add section, and I'm going to embed the album. Throw that block in there, and I just put in my SoundCloud URL. There, and I can look at it on mobile view just as easily and independently edit the mobile version and the desktop version. Can change around the styles, the fonts, the colors. I can build my own template from scratch if I want to. I can use AI to help me build a template. And all of that I can do for free. But when it comes time to publish a website or to register a custom domain name for it, that costs a little bit of money, but you can save 10% off using my code Ragusia at checkout. Or go to the URL, squarespace.com/Ragusia. Save 10% when you're ready to take your project live. My project is now live down in the description. I will update that with links as the album comes live on streaming services. Right now it's just on SoundCloud, and that's just fine. And I'll also put in the links to all the music videos as I post them from week to week, and hopefully people are not annoyed by that. I hope I've earned the privilege. I mean, really, just thank you for listening. I'm sure a lot of you make music too, and you know how hard it is to get people to listen to it, even when you're really, really good. And that sucks, especially when you feel like you have something inside that people could really like. Okay, fun fact before we go. You may have noticed that in a lot of my recent cooking videos, my narration has sounded slightly oddly reverberant. It's because I've been spending so much time down here in the basement studio where my drums are, and what you get here is what's called sympathetic vibration. So my voice is actually making the drum head vibrate right now. If I just talk right into it there, you can probably really hear it. Sympathetic vibration. That's why my narration has been sounding a little weirdly echoey lately. Sorry about that. I think I've gotten the music out for the time being so I can get out of the basement for at least a few months. And if people like what I do, maybe I'll do some more, maybe I won't. I don't know. 42. I should probably move on to other things. Rock and roll's a young man's game.